Hello, students. So today this is week two, and we're looking at two major issues of Caribbean development that we consider to be essential questions. So each week we have essential question that will guide the focus for the particular week. As I said, this is week two. The essential question this week, questions in this case, we have two. What are some means by which the Caribbean is defined, and how do these definitions affect or impact the people of the Caribbean region? So, what do we mean by Caribbean, and who are the people of the Caribbean? That's the first issue. Now, this is a map, of course, of the Caribbean. You guys are going to become very familiar with the Caribbean map. But how did the Caribbean, how was the Caribbean formed? And just really, we're going to do a little bit of, earth science, but we're not going to stay long with the earth science, and we're not going to go deep in the earth science issue. We're just going to visit earth science a little bit, just to really get a brief review of how the Caribbean was formed geologically and geographically, and how that impacts the definition of the Caribbean. Just a real quick review. You guys took earth science in college. Um, so the earth is composed of three main parts: the core, the mantle, and the crust. In fact, let me go to the diagram. So at the center of the earth is a body of intensely hot um, iron and nickel forms the core, right? So that's the sort of core is at the at the middle, and a less dense and much larger middle sphere is made up of material rich in iron, magnesium, and calcium that comprise the mantle. The outermost layer of a thin veneer is considered to be the skin. Uh, is a rock called the crust. So that the crust is where like the ocean sits and all of that. So the crust beneath the ocean is composed of, let's jump a bit, um, it's composed of heavy dark volcanic rocks such as basalt, and continental crust is composed mostly of light rocks rich in silica, such as granite, right? And so when we have volcanic eruptions, um, it comes from the middle of the earth, from the inner and outer core and the mantle, right? So so this is a slice through the Earth's layer. So tectonic plates is what we're concerned about mostly in this particular conversation. So that's the surface of the Earth under the ocean, and in some cases, the land where the this volcanic activity happens. So the crust is made up of continental plates. So if you were to take out all of the water from the seas, what you will have at the bottom will be land, and the land will be divided into these plates. As you can see, the Caribbean Sea is in the midst of like major plates that are crisscrossed, and they move in certain directions. Um, and so what happens with that is that you have a lot of fault lines in the Caribbean region, as you can see here. It's a major one that that is causing a lot of activities. As you can see, part of it arcs up to Haiti, and we'll talk about that later. Haiti in August had a major earthquake, But in any case, so these tectonic plates spread out throughout the Earth's surface, and they are major factors in earthquakes and volcanoes. So this gives us the first definition of the Caribbean, the geological definition of the Caribbean. People who identify the Caribbean in geological terms, they say that the geological definition is shows that there are deep-seated structural features that have identified commonalities of the region, and so this is defined by the Caribbean plate, and the countries of the Caribbean experience similar tectonic, seismic, and volcanic features and processes. So that's the geological definition. So if you look at the map, you will see that the Eastern Caribbean have many live volcanoes. The red will indicate the active volcano of the active volcanoes of the region. You can see here starting from St. Kitts in the Lesser Antilles all the way down to Grenada. Active volcanoes lace this particular ridge of the Caribbean. Grenada is a very unique case because there is an underwater volcano, and it's called Kikim-Jenny, and it's under the water, so it causes heavy. It's very active, and it causes heavy movement of the water because of the volcanic eruption, which causes very difficult navigation in the area. In fact, I was there only a week ago, and we went up to the Grenadine Islands, which is the set of islands between Grenada and St. Vincent, and it was a very rough ride because we had to travel in that area where this Kikim-Jenny volcano is, and it caused a lot of upset stomachs, and I almost had an emergency. In any case, so this is a feature of the Eastern Caribbean region. Volcanoes are vents or opening in the Earth's crust through which hot molten rock called magma and gases from the interior of the Earth are released. Sometimes, but not always, the solid parts pile up around the vent of the volcano to form a volcanic mountain. And if it's under the water, it causes rough seas. Some volcanoes are literally slits or holes in the ground, while others are broad mountains with slopes and so on and so forth. So why are there so many volcanoes in the Eastern Caribbean? Well, as we said, the Earth's crust is made up of slabs of material called plates that move relative to each other, and the Eastern Caribbean lie on a plate boundary. And the North American plate, which is the denser of the two, sinks beneath the Caribbean plate, creating suitable conditions for magma to be pushed up from the inner Earth. So the magma then rises to the surface of the Earth, where it may erupt to form a volcano. Okay, so you have this whole subduction issue. So this is how the Caribbean islands were formed. This is a feature of Caribbean life, and is one of the things that define the Caribbean, because most of the Caribbean islands are impacted in one way or another by these activities. And you can see here in Haiti, in August, as I said before, Haiti had another tragic volcanic eruption. It was hit in the middle of August by a magnitude 7.2 earthquake that crumbled homes and buildings like the one we're seeing here. It killed 1,200 people, and just over 10 years ago, a similar quake left an estimated 220,000 people dead. More than 1 million people were displaced, and roughly 300,000 injured. So Haiti has been getting the brunt of this volcanic activity because of many factors. The major factor is that it's on this this meeting of these two plates, the North American plate and the Caribbean plate, but also the housing conditions in Haiti are, the standards are not as strong as it will be in the future to withstand some of these shocks. So it's a mixture of poverty and geologic activities. The other definition of the Caribbean is the geographical, and that's probably the most obvious of these. So basically, this defines the Caribbean uh, by the areas that are washed by the Caribbean Sea. So if you're, the Caribbean is almost a lake. The Caribbean Sea is almost a lake, except for uh, the eastern edges where you have these dotted islands where the waters of the Atlantic come through um, the comes eastward towards the central and southern central and South American landmass. So this also is part of the Caribbean. The rimland countries of South America, like Venezuela, Colombia, and so on, but also the isthmus countries of Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, Belize, and Guatemala, for example. So the geographical definition will therefore include most of the islands of the Lesser and the Greater Antilles, as well as the mainland territories of Central America and northern South America, such as Colombia and Brazil. Then the historical definition of the Caribbean has it that uh, the impact of European colonialism, slavery, indentureship, and plantation system sort of like unites the Caribbean in that sense. This refers to all of the territories, so that one means by which we can define the Caribbean is by identifying those countries that experience the rule of specific European countries, namely English, French, Dutch, Spanish, etc. So this is perhaps the the broadest definition of the Caribbean. Then we have political definition of the Caribbean. This has like three basic components. The independent states, which is self-explanatory, so those countries that got their independence. And then you have the semi-independent states, which are considered to be the political uh, Caribbean associated states, which they associated with great powers like France and the Netherlands, right? So places like Guadeloupe, Martinique, Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, the so-called ABC Islands. So that's the political associated states. And then you have the colonial dependencies. These are direct colonies. Uh, uh, these are territories which are directly governed by other countries, like, for example, um, the countries of, the U.S. Virgin Islands, the British Virgin Islands, and so on. So there are problems with all of these definitions. And I'm really going fast because this can be, I'm trying to make it as short as possible. So the geographic definition has problems. So the geographic definition, if we were to use this, Guyana and the Bahamas don't have coastlines on the Caribbean Sea, yet they are considered to be Caribbean, right? And so that's problematic with that particular definition. So the definition also includes not usually countries not usually considered Caribbean, such as Panama, Costa Rica, Colombia, etc. If we are to go by the geographic definition. Remember I said the geographic definitions mean that all of the countries that are washed in some way or touched by the Caribbean Sea, right? So this is not, so none of these, all of these definitions have some kind of problematic aspect to it. And the problem with the historical is that the problem, the linguistic or colonial heritage is that this definition ignores commonalities of experience at the hands of these colonial powers. So meaning that the Spanish-speaking Caribbean, the English-speaking Caribbean, the Dutch and the French all experienced colonialism to a certain extent, but there are particular differences in terms of how colonial rule was was carried out, right? So this is not a complete definition. The definition will include Guyana and Bahamas, but it should also include French, Dutch, Spanish speaking countries if we are to use that definition. So again, problematic. Um, so the the geological also has this problem. So the western edge of the Caribbean plate is the Pacific and includes Nicaragua, Honduras, Costa Rica, and Panama. And I will also add, El Salvador. This definition will include Guyana and the Bahamas, but it should also include French, Dutch, Spanish-speaking countries of Central and South America. So again, no definition is complete, and that's why in this class we have a more nuanced definition of the Caribbean, and we encourage the broadest definition. All right, so